Welcome back to another session for this week, talking about productivity and in this case, at the workplace. Well, it's always focused on the workplace, obviously. But today we want to focus on focus in this session. And we just completed our quarterly review. Actually, we completed in the beginning of April already. However, we went through the Idea Incubator. That's something we haven't had time left, and that's what we completed today. And those who following the ICOR methodology, they know what the Idea Incubator is. If you know it, post it in the chat. So the Idea Incubator is a place where you can store ideas without interrupting other people's work. And that's the whole idea about this. And we just realized once again how important this Idea Incubator is. Because by going through this, oh boy, man, I think we had, I don't know, 20, 30 items in there.
Quite a lot. Well,
That
first,
just filled up within 1 quarter, right? And
yeah,
20 of them were just rejected. So we went through the things and said, man, that's nonsense. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't fit into the goals that we had. We will never do that. And I just realized, man, imagine we would have followed each of these ideas that they came up the moment that you stop the other work that actually was planned out and you follow up these ideas. What a waste of time this would have been, and obviously money, and not getting the things done that were planned. And that's how these things happen. And that's why such an idea incubator, or any place where you can get rid of it out of your brain, because we know these things are very exciting the moment they came up. But then when you let it breathe and when you let it incubate there for a week, even if you just have it during the week, and next Monday you have the agenda meeting and talking about this, you realize many times it was nonsense. It was exciting at the moment, but it doesn't fit into the whole concept. It is no longer as exciting as you thought. And that's, for me, it was the big insight again, going through the idea incubator. How glad we are that we have it.
well, the thing is that I'd like to say that, well, we split in 2 different sessions, the quarterly review. We finish it today, is April the 14th. So it's not exactly at the end of the quarter and nothing has happened. We are here alive without any problem. You see how productivity is so flexible. And we considered at that moment when we were doing the quarterly review that we should dedicate longer to this quarterly review, and that's why we decided to split it. And then today we finish it.
Yeah, and you have to add, Paco, that we still worked during this time. It's not that we've been sitting there and wondering what could we do now, and oh no, we have to wait now 2 weeks until we understand what we need to do next. No, it is an ongoing work process, and that's why it doesn't hurt these things.
Correct. And it's important to mention what you have just said, that most of the ideas at the end are just, fleeting thoughts, that because it's really difficult. And I think that that's also quite a good framework or approach to ideas, thinking that most of the ideas won't work. Okay. So it doesn't matter if you lose some of them. Don't worry. The human beings are used to generate ideas, crazy ideas, because the moment that you write them down and you calmly read them again 1 month, 2 months, 3 months later, you can see how stupid you are and how out of focus you are, okay? Because most of them are nonsense. Well, there are some of them that you don't even understand what you meant. That's why it's important the moment you capture an idea to add the description as wide as possible, because when you are looking at it 2-3 months in the future, it's impossible to think the context, okay, and why you came up with that idea. And also, the Idea Incubator helps you being aware of what important and crucial things are for the business, okay? It's the way that you are perfectly aligned, that the moment that you start comparing what's planned with those ideas, you reject most of them. Some others you leave them for the future. And it's the way that I think that a business really works, okay? Because you are fully focused on the things that matter, and also planning each 3 months, it's essential, is what I said.
Yeah.
It's
But
impossible and nonsense to plan.
As we all know, all this doesn't work with a working productivity system. So that you partially already answered the question from Mark in chat, where he asks, what's a good question to ask about ideas? And you said it, right? The first question I would ask is, does it fit into our goals? Does it align to anything that we agreed on? Because if you have a proper goal setting, if you have a proper productivity system that tells you the project you're working in and everybody is at full speed, there's no room for new ideas, especially ideas that don't fit into what you're currently working on, that you agreed on in the first quarter. And let me tell you that in corporate with the 300,000 employee company, huge thing. I had my yearly goals that I had to do. And I had my year where I didn't, where I missed one or two goals. And I wonder how could this happen? Because I've been working 13 hours a day. So how is this possible? And even when my boss, I said, can you tell me what to focus on? Because I'm working the whole day, I'm busy the whole day, and still I'm not able to achieve the goals because I have the feeling I'm working for other people's goals. And that's what happened. People came, they had requests. I put them as more important, their work, than my own work. And that's due to the lack of my own understanding of what has priority. So even my boss wasn't able to really tell me, even that she offered, yeah, focus on this, but she wasn't aware that, other things were still as important as these things to do. And especially it was a high competitive work environment and random unexpected things have happened all the time, like, unexpected audits or something from the FDA. It was in the pharma industry. So that's where I realized I have to take control. You cannot always blame the others and say, well, you didn't tell me and you should have told me. And no, you have to take control and responsibility about this, because if this happens, you have no clue what's going on. And that's why ideas creep in the moment when you're not in control of what you need to do this week, this moment. You give ideas more space. And then it becomes worse if you have no place where you can perfectly store the ideas, so you can be sure they get addressed the moment there's room and time to address these ideas. So it doesn't mean you have to wait a whole quarter, for example, because many times we finish projects earlier, right? Or during a quarter, and then we already have a backlog that we can fill up with that we can go back to start new projects out of this in no time. So everything is constantly in a flow.
For me, to reply to Mark, I would say that a good question to ask about ideas to quickly filter them is asking yourself, if it works, what do I achieve? I mean, what's the impact in the business? Is there an ROI that I can perfectly define? Will this be really life-changing for the business? And I think that with that, you kill many ideas as they emerge. And if you hesitate, well, you store them, because I think that businesses evolve not because it seems that you don't need ideas to make the business evolve. And that's not the case, okay? The point is how you handle the ideas. And I think that ideas don't come out of a brainstorming session where everybody starts, saying things out loud. I think that ideas emerge naturally when you create the right environment, okay? And that's because that's the case. And we have here an amazing use case with our quarterly review, because this morning, some ideas, we were already working on them, because the project itself, the things that we were delivering were perfectly aligned with things that we have thought in the past. And I think that that's the right approach to ideas, okay? Ideas emerge because of the environment, because you have created a system that you promote and encourage the right ideas to emerge, okay? Because we can perfectly see the connection between the things that we are doing, how we envision our business, and the things that we need to do to achieve to that destination. And I think that that's the right approach, talking about how to manage ideas in a business and incorporate. And the moment that you do that, you are constantly executing things that are healthy for the business. And I think that that's the thing, because there's no time for more, okay? That's what we need to understand, okay? That there's no more time to do additional things, because you are doing the most essential things for the business at any moment.
Yeah, and this perfectly aligns with our execution beast and peer concept workflow. So peer stands for plan, execute, align. And in the align step, we do something similar with unexpected events that come in, but the same applies to the idea that comes in. Does this align with my goals that were set, with the tasks that I planned out, the daily highlights? All this will be impacted. So the real question is that you should ask is this question you have in peer, which is part of the ICOR methodology. Does it align with my goals? Is it what I should be doing right now? So if you can't answer this properly, then you have no plan in the first place and you're not busy, because you should immediately know when something unexpected comes in, that your plan gets hurt that you had during the week. And that's where many cases people start weekly planning and they plan out too detailed during the week and try to fill up every 15 minutes in a day. And the moment they enter Tuesday, it's already outdated and it's no longer working. And that's why we also never fill up the calendar in such a space to give a breathing room for unexpected events, because there are also ideas that have a great return of investment, that is a low hanging fruit, that's implemented within 1 or 2 hours. Well, then don't wait for a whole quarter if this is possible. So everything needs to be as flexible as enough, but also the realization, what will be the impact, and is it worth doing? These are really the things that you need to be aware whenever it comes to ideas. Well, and a huge impact was changing the YouTube channels. That was something that was, well, it was breeding inside myself like, well, like the Alien, the movie, that it finally broke out, because that was a big challenge with the YouTube channel that I've launched in, well, the channel itself is since 2010. That was the very first video I uploaded there, but focused on productivity, it was since end of 2017. And since then, I uploaded 519 videos to this channel, and it grew and it was perfect. But the problem was the lack of focus. And this means related to topics around productivity. It is such a wide space and so many things that you can talk about that it is similar to the idea collection. I shared every idea that came to mind on this channel, and it was random out of productivity. But the problem is that people joined for one reason, that because they saw one specific video, let's say about a document scanner, and I thought the whole channel is then in the future about document scanners, and the next moment I talk about execution beast and peer, and then they are no longer interested and leave. And that's why that's holding back growth. And that's not only for the YouTube channel, that's for everything. And that's already, it was from the beginning onwards, and Paco knows this as much as I do. It's a challenge for the business too. It would be so much easier to grow the paperless movement business just focusing on, I don't know. Well, good example, just on PKM, right? Just on personal knowledge management. Man, how easy this would be. We would have our niche, we would focus on one product, one tool that we use, we build courses around this, and then you have this, what you have there, many times. But our plan was always to cover it all. And the niche is the professionals that we are focusing on and not students. That's niche, but for many, it's not niching down enough. So we could now say it's just the team leader of small teams, and that's what we focus on. Again, it would be so much easier to grow. But ICOR applies to all the professionals that we met, all the different industries, and even the different sizes. So we will fight for this, that it will be as broad. However, the conclusion now was to launch separate channels to bring back this focus. So the main channel I keep as my brain dump channel whenever I come up with something that I come across related to new tools that come out and things like that. So I wanted to keep the freedom to have a channel where I can post all this. But now we have two new channels. One is the productivity, the productivity for professionals, that focuses now on the ICO methodology, systems building, the tool agnostic way to become more productive as a professional. And then there's another tool focus channel focusing on the three tools that, well, we know many of you also love: Heptabase, Miro, and ClickUp. And on this channel, I focus just on these three tools. And yet again, people join for Heptabase and they will leave whenever I share something about ClickUp. That's what it is, but it's already much more focused. And then we have the podcast that you're just listening to right here, Productivity Like a Pro. And that's it. And this, well, it gives focus for the viewers and understanding what to expect in the future. But for me, creating all these content, that was a relief because now it's crystal clear. I can, whenever something comes to mind, that's where it goes to. These are the single source of truth for these types of contents. It allows you to make a proper content strategy as well. A lot of improvements. So we've been publishing the content strategy all on one channel previously, but now it has the different funnels, and that in the back end is now also reflected. So for each channel, we have our own work stream, and it goes a long way. And this is something where you optimize along the way. Obviously, huge impact on everything when you do something with a 85,000 subscriber channel. But now we made an informed decision and we collected the data over the past 2 years and what impacts and things like that. And that's why this was the right decision to make. So again, another example for focus that allows them to double down and speed things up. The same is also for testing all the ways how to create the videos, how to edit the videos, having video editors versus doing it myself. What is faster? What is, when it comes to this, I could take weeks for one video, adding all the effects that I know. But I realized, okay, this is the minimum to deliver the quality that we are looking for, combined with the highest efficiency in creating the videos and less time. And again, that's based on gathering information. After 519 videos, you know how long it will take to make one video, track the time for video creation, and you have an average. And then you look for ways how you can shorten the time. And all these things you can only do then with recurring projects, in this case, work streams.
Yeah, and it's important also to draw another conclusion from our quarterly review before we move on with the questions that our people are asking in the chat, is that, again, we have been conscious of how we have a system in place, okay? And we can perfectly state that because we have just, I don't know, 2-3 projects, and the rest of our work are all work streams, okay? It's just systems that are working on autopilot, and without that deadline and that project approach that we try to avoid to achieve our goals, it's something that we've been working for quite a while, because when you are launching a business, it's full of projects, okay? Things that you need to launch, and it's just one-time shot and that's it, and you forget and move to the next one. But the moment that you have a pretty well consolidated business is the moment that you can start working based on systems. And that's so powerful because by running systems, you are constantly polishing the business itself without thinking about anything. Okay, it's just by letting those systems run, everything emerge. For instance, this decision, okay, that we talking about the YouTube channel, for instance, we could have created a project, I don't know when, okay, but thinking about the perfect strategy, okay, about YouTube or whatever, okay, and we have never been able to conclude the things that we have concluded right now, because this is based on this back and forth, okay, of putting things into practice, see the results, polishing, and entering this feedback loop that we call positive in this case, because we have ended up with what we consider that is the perfect solution. And well, the numbers, the figures, the analytics, everything will tell us that we are in the right spot, because we are covering all the things that we wanted to cover, that right now it seems really easy, intuitive, and just common sense, but that has been the conclusion of a pretty deep thought process behind, full of experiments, of failures, okay, of wasting time, energy, and resources. But at the end, we have ended up with this system, okay, that now it's working on autopilot. It's based on our common sense. That's why we always insist that you need to build a tailor-made productivity system. You need to build your own productivity system based on your use case, based on your knowledge, based on the things that you want to accomplish and the reality of your work and life. And the moment that you do that, you perfectly interact with that system. You don't have any doubt about the tools that you need to put into place. You simplify your tool stack, and that's how you bet on efficiency. And that's what we are doing right now, and people will see. Right now we have delivered another product, okay, quote, that it's the weekly updates or weekly highlights, that it's all the things that we deliver just within a week, and you will see the insane amount of content that we are going to deliver, how we are improving the membership to our members, how we are delivering the things that our members are asking for. And at the end, this is the positive feedback loop, the moment that you are fully aware of what a system is and how to build it.
Yeah. And the weekly highlights, so the inside the movement, as we call it, that's really important as well because we launched it. It's nearly a new product, but something that is also exciting for ourselves because we are creating and changing and updating so many things inside the paperless movement just within 1 week that we talk about in the agenda meeting each week. So we are aware of this, but sharing this with the members, that is certainly something worth sharing. So you're aware how, at what speed the paperless movement content machine is running. That's really amazing. And one last thing that we already in the beginning of the year did, like the YouTube channels, was the conclusion of optimizing the CRM system. That's another example. Since 2018, I was using email management tools and CRMs in combination, and automation tools like Sapient, a lot of things. But now having the conclusion where, and that's going into too detail, that doesn't matter. But the thing is, now we have a consolidated single source of truth in one tool where all the other tools are finally connected into. So whenever we have to support a member or we have to reach out to a member or anything like that, everything is in one place. And that's really a game changer. When I have discovery calls with people, they're always amazed when I know all the things, right? When they made the quiz and all the things, it's a different efficiency again being in the calls because everything is ready. There's no time wasted with looking things up and searching or asking questions that were already answered earlier. So all these things is something you cannot start a business with this end goal in mind. You have to start the things dirty, as we say. Sometimes we say we need to get this out as soon as possible. So let's make it dirty. You can say 80% or sometimes even with 60%. It depends on how important the things are. But then don't lose track. You need to keep track that this needs to be finished and how you plan to finish this and all these things. It doesn't work without the awareness of the overall concepts in your business. So let's go through the questions before we run out of time. And I think we start with Nicole because she's relating to the idea that we said in the beginning. So she says, and I will pull this down now because even that I have jet pilot eyes, it's still too far away. What if a really good idea is coming up, but following it would mean to start a new project or at least a sub project and you don't have time for it? When should you go back to it? And how do you remind yourself, like set a reminder in Todoist or special routine where you will not lose it? Well, in fact, that's exactly what we talked about right now. So that's certainly something that needs to go in the Idea Incubator. And when it comes, for example, to personal things, when I have for my hobby woodworking, right, there are thousands of ideas what I could do. So I will just add them to a space inside Todoist without a date. So whenever I have time and the mood, I just go in there and then check what I want to do next. But this is different in business. You cannot just do that. And that's where the Idea Incubator comes in. So the routine that you referring to, Nicole, is in fact what we just said is the quarterly review. That's the moment, that's the routine. Every quarter you do this quarterly review where you go through, did we achieve the goals? If we haven't achieved a goal, what's the status of this project? How long will it keep going? Will we keep going? These are the decisions that are behind this. Then the future projects for the next quarter and going into the Idea Incubator and go through these ideas. And some random things where during the quarter, you know, when you think, oh man, this is something that cannot wait until the next quarter, that's usually we add this to the agenda meeting. So within a week, we talk about this idea and then we say, well, let's do this. It's just 30 minutes, 1 hour, what I mentioned earlier. Let's do it directly. Or if not, well, if you're unsure, let's move it into the idea incubator. And that's what we did. And that's exactly the 20 ideas that we killed today. That was exactly the situation. Well, we don't know yet. Does it fit? No. Let's move it to the idea incubator and let's look in the quarterly review what we think about this next. And that makes it so calm, everything, that you feel it's under control. And this is scalable because we had also teams where they ask, oh, what about if I have several teams in my company and things like that? So there are always ways how you can scale this and have different idea incubators and whatnot. So Marco, you wanted to add something?
Important. I would like to add, because it's important as always, I'm
As
obsessed with the
always.
concepts, okay? And we need to understand what a reminder is, okay?
Yeah.
A reminder is just an alarm, okay, that you set with a pretty specific purpose, okay? If you want to remember, I need to call this person, or I have this meeting at this time, are specific things, alarms. And that has nothing to do with something that you want to be reminded by using a system, okay?
Yeah.
And that's the difference between using on routines versus using reminders, because if you bet on the reminder approach, you will end up with 20, 30, 50, depending on the volume, alarms that are constantly interrupting you. That's why we should always bet on routines, okay? That because first off, that way you are creating a system, okay? Because a system is just several routines, okay, that are running in a specific order, okay? That's what more or less we can name a system. The point is that the more you bet on routines, okay, no matter if it's related to your team, related to yourself, whatever, the more you are building a system, okay? So if you got an idea and you put it in the idea incubator or the agenda as an agenda item in the agenda meeting bucket, okay, we are creating a system because we know that that's constantly running. I don't need to be reminded, okay? And that's the approach that the moment that you start thinking like that, you do that with any item that appears, okay? An idea that you come up, something that you need to do. You are starting to think about routines instead of being reminded a specific time and date, because you have control over routines. You decide when you're going to execute a routine, but you don't decide, okay, when an alarm is going to, interrupt you to tell you something that I'm pretty sure at that moment it will be an interruption that you will hate, okay? So that's an important thing to understand. We need to avoid reminders unless they are really useful, okay? But they need to be as low as possible, talking about a quantity, and only linked to specific items within your productivity system.
Yeah, 100%. So that's really when I have a reminder, then I know it's really important. Otherwise, your brain just starts ignoring these things. Like me in the morning when I have the snooze button. I don't know how my brain does it, but I keep not hearing the alarm. So I have to change the sound or whatever. But this happens also with notifications. You just see a number, it doesn't matter how big the number is on the badge that you have on unread emails. The moment you have hundreds of unread emails, it doesn't matter if it is 300 or whatever. And that's happening with the reminder. So we have to bring back the importance again to these things. And that's exactly how we do it. Now I will answer the question from Silvo, and then we go to Marco, because that's more for Paco then as the Tana user. But Silvo, and let's keep going, we will end these questions and then we will answer Vincent's as well. And let's go a bit over time. So Silvo says or asks, if given, what are your absolute favorite books you have read relating focus and slow productivity? Well, I recommend you highly to read the ICOR journey
Yeah.
in
And
this
I would.
regards. However, as you already mentioned, slow productivity, you're probably already referring to Carl Newport. And that's also a good book in this direction too. But I don't know what Paco has to add to this.
Well, the thing is that I consider, we're not going to discover right now to call Newport, okay? But the thing is that
That's another
it's
rabbit hole.
a book talking about deep work that contains a lot of interesting insights, obviously. But the thing is that it's a little bit dangerous for busy professionals, okay? I think that the main takeaway of that book is understanding the difference between shallow work and deep work, okay?
Yeah.
But not ending up with the conclusion that it seems that shallow work doesn't matter at all, okay? Because it's only deep work, because we have to take into account what Cole Newport is. He's a teacher at the university, okay? And that has nothing to do with an owner, a business, people, and all that stuff, okay? But differentiating, I think that this is crucial, and that's the main takeaway of that book, okay? That it's splitting between deep work and shallow work, because that allows you to create a structure within your planner, okay? The way you structure your work and your days and your week and all that stuff. I would also like to add another classical book that it's important, because I consider that at the end, slow productivity is being perform at a peak level, okay, without burning out. And I think that for that, you need to create a system. And for me, if you want to understand what a system is, the easiest way possible, I think that Atomic Habits from James Clear is the one to really understand what we are explaining here, talking about routines and what a system is, okay? And I think that the moment that you bet on a system, for me, that's slow productivity, okay? Because you are not in reactive mode, okay? The moment that you have a system implemented, you make the change to being proactive. And I think that being proactive is what gives you control, that sense of calmness, peace of mind, what you have mentioned as slow productivity.
Exactly. So let's move on to Marco. I'm using Tana because it functions similarly to my brain, but I'm unsure whether I should use a dedicated task manager or keep everything in Tana. Alternatively, if a task is important enough, I should create a manual link from the Tana task to the Todoist task. Having a reference is incredibly powerful, which is why I'm more inclined to use tasks in Tana. However, I also see the benefits of using a dedicated task manager. I'm torn between the two options. And well, even that I no longer use Tana, but the insight with the connection, that's another key revelation for many people, that you can link things together. And then you have to understand the difference, that you might have a place just for your knowledge and you have another, or information, and you have another place for your actions. And by this understanding, you make it on autopilot, that you use Tana just for your knowledge and Todoist for your actions. But also, as I do in Heptabase, just to give the relevance, and then obviously Paco as the Tana expert here will give the his 5 cents, or is it 2 cents? 2 cents. Only 2 cents.
Well, maybe $1. $1.
But in Heptabase, in the Heptabase mastery course inside the membership, I share also about how to use tasks in Heptabase. And that's where we saw many times that people always try to use their personal knowledge management tools for task management. And the developers make the mistake to even support this, right? So they give them tasks, and then they give their calendar integration and things like that. But in the end, it will be never a proper task manager. It will be always a PKM tool. And that's where the control over your task becomes really hard. However, I collect, for example, tasks, or if you do this in Heptabase, and in Tana you can do it similar, you can create checkboxes to have something that you need to do. But this just becomes another inbox, and this inbox needs to be processed via a routine. That's how I do it. So I have a routine that I process the inbox. So these action items get moved into the final system, the final action system, the single source of truth. So this means whenever I create something in my PKM, it's just a temporary state of this action, and it needs to be processed into the final action system in order to ensure that it actually gets done. Otherwise, you scatter out the actions too much over different systems, and then you lose control of what is going on. And the worst thing, in our case, if I go, or in my case, if I go to Sansama, it's useless PKM tools, because I cannot see the tasks there. So I have to think about, okay, how do you handle this? All this becomes a mess.
Yes, the thing is that we have concluded that everything depends on volume. Okay, we have always said the same. If you have just 3 tasks, you can use a POSIT, okay, without any problem, and pen and paper, okay. But the moment that you are dealing with a lot of, it's not just the volume itself, but also the environment, okay. I consider that for a busy professional, the environment is quite aggressive, okay, and you need to bet on the best tools possible for each use case. And I mean, Tana is not a task management tool, okay? It's a knowledge management tool. No matter that, thanks to how flexible it is, you can do anything on it. But the point is that when you start competing between tools that are designed with a specific purpose, such as Todoist, that is just a task management, versus a knowledge management that you can, customize and set up to become kind of a task management system, it won't be able to compete one to each other because it has nothing to do, okay? You are betting on weaknesses of a tool to do something that was not one of the assets, okay, and strengths of that tool. You can give it a try. In my opinion, it's impossible, okay? I need to use Todoist for, in my case, just Speedies, okay, I go the next level, okay, not even task, just Speedies due to the huge amount of Speedies that I manage. But the thing is that
tasks less than 15 minutes.
Correct. Sorry, I always forget that there are people who don't know what a speedy is, because I have said a speedy I don't know how many times in my life. Sorry about that. But the thing is that I think that you can get advantage of what Tom has just said if you have tasks that emerge. But the point is that no matter that emerge at that time, maybe if you are in the middle of a meeting, because how you can capture both on mobile and desktop a task on Todoist is so fast. It's a keystroke I create quickly and perfectly distill that task. Understanding for that I assign the right place for it, okay? The due date, everything within just 3 keystrokes, and that's something that I cannot do on Tana. And in my opinion, I will highly recommend to split and use the right tools for their specific purpose, because this comes to mind another thing to me, that it's the other day I read an entry coming from a productivity guru who said that, well, this is the most crucial tool in my tool stack, okay, referring to a specific tool that it wasn't Tana nor Todoist, okay, another tool.
So what was it? Come on.
And I said, what the heck? If you have one tool that is the most crucial in your tool stack, that clearly says and states that you don't have a productivity system in place. And I will write an article about that, because within a system, even the smallest component of a system is essential, okay? We can think about the body. If you have just one cell that has cancer, it will kill everything, the system, and it's just one cell in the middle of billions of cells. And that's the most important thing. We need to understand that the moment that we have a real productivity system in place, every single tool becomes essential. Talking about that, if you remove, you need to replace, maybe using a specific feature of some other tool or other tool. But I cannot live without Todoist. I cannot remove a Tana from my productivity system. I cannot remove ClickUp. I cannot move Linear. I cannot move anything. That's why they are there, okay? Because if I could remove a tool, I would have done it. And that's what we do. That's why we have a set of tools that it's really streamlined, okay? There's the minimum amount of tool, but betting on the strength of each of the single tools. And I think that that's important to understand. And the moment that you understand if you are taking the strength of a tool is based on the purpose of that tool, okay? You cannot say right now, because Craft, okay, launched task management, that it's a task management tool. No, it's a note-taking tool, PKM tool that has had a task that for many people that can be useful, okay? But the point is that, and this is an experiment that I have done, okay? I have tried to make Tana a one and only app for years, okay? And then I wasn't able due to my use case, and I tried to do this, okay? Creating a task management system, and it's impossible because, for instance, you don't have reminders. How the heck? I need reminders in many of my, especially Speedies, okay? If I Speedies, I need to call this guy. I need to have a reminder. And how the heck do I have a reminder? And that's just a specific thing, okay? The moment that you go really into the nitty-gritty of the things, you will see that there are a lot of weaknesses because it's not a pure task management, okay? And we need to look for pure tools for the main purposes they've been designed. And also, it's impossible that, and I will finish with this, it's impossible that any tool, okay, that is not fully focused on task management can compete with Todoist that has dedicated 15 years just to task management. It's impossible because we are talking about a huge company. Well, I think that they are more than 100 people. Imagine more than 100 people working just to create a task management, and you're going to create a task management using Notion or Tana. Well, that it's only possible if your volume and your use case is pretty simple, and then things work, okay? But nobody's going to convince me that I can perfectly use Tana to handle hundreds of different tasks that I'm dealing with every single day with the dynamism and the efficiency that I'm doing with pure task management, such as Todoist.
Yeah, and there was already the fight with Notion back then. Notion versus ClickUp is the same thing. It was never a project management tool to this extent as it was ClickUp or Asana or any other dedicated project management tool, as much as ClickUp was never a great knowledge management tool like Notion. And that's something you need just to be aware and then decide what you really need for your business. And as you said, with volume matters. And that's exactly the case here, because the reason why people always fall into the trap, hey, I will use the personal knowledge management tool for my tasks, and they even kill their task manager they used so far and migrate everything in just to realize after weeks they hit the ceiling, is the dream about this one and only tool that gives you everything. And you have to get this dream that you don't have a one and only tool, you have a one and only productivity system that consists of many tools. Because what you're doing is you're inside a tool that becomes your system, and then you still have the different parts of the system that you have in there, like the task management part, the project management part, the information part, management part, and things like that. And all you do is trying to force one tool that wasn't built for any of these things except for personal knowledge management into all the other categories. And this realization, what we teach for free inside the membership with the ICOR framework, when you add your tools there, that makes you realize that these tools are not made for these areas of your productivity system. And then you look out for the specialized tools that fill the gaps properly. And that is it for today. Vincent says in this chat, I find jotting it down in my PKM helpful. When planning, I make sure to transfer it to my Idea Incubator inside ClickUp. At least for myself, knowing when I can move it to an active project is crucial if it's something I need to prioritize for action. I keep finding when I reread everything, I become more aware of things I should have realized before. And that goes also back to what Paco said. That, yeah, instantly we can open up Todoist and create a task when you're on the keyboard, and even with Raycast, even faster and things like that. But I sometimes, while I'm taking notes during the meeting, just jot things down quickly in a checkbox. So I'm not even losing not even in a meeting. When I'm in a deep thought process, thinking about something, and then I'm in a flow. And this simple context switch can interrupt everything already. So while I'm writing in bullet points, I will just simply add another bullet point with this action. And then in another state of my mind, I will go back to the actions, and I with the context around this action, I'm able to create the action in the action system even more properly. All right. Marco says, as a response to our explanations, makes sense. Thanks for the insight. You gave me a clear view on the matter. It makes sense that other tools like capacities prefer to have task action just to delegate to a proper task manager. What you said, Paco, was the main issue I have, as I need to give action a reminder as be quick to jot that action. Yeah, exactly. And the more you realize the different types of tools, the easier it will become to optimize your overall productivity system. I think that's the final words that I can give there. Everybody, we catch you up next week. Have a good time.
For sure.
Bye-bye.
Take care. See you guys. Thank you.